So this is actually my first time seeing the whole ceremony. I've been involved in the animal rights world for probably almost 10 years now, but it was a very powerful thing. So I just want to thank everybody who was a part of making this happen, everyone who was involved in the ceremony. I think things like this are remarkably important for, conveying to people that this is really a very important social justice issue that a lot of people care about. So I'm going to talk about something a little bit different and the work that we do at the Non-Human Rights Project. So for those of you who perhaps have not heard of us, we have for the last few years been filing lawsuits here in New York. It's actually our first state, asking courts to find that non-human animals, as we call them, as a reminder that we are all animals, and so we need to specify who we're talking about, the non-human ones. And we ask that these courts find that at least some animals can be legal persons. And I think there's a lot of confusion around this idea, what it means to be a legal person. I think there's a lot of people who assume, they hear the word and they think you're talking about, human beings. But that really is not what we're talking about at all. And if you look at something like corporation, corporations are legal persons. They're persons under the law. That doesn't mean that they have human rights. That doesn't mean that they have the same needs as an animal. All that means is that they matter, that if they have something that's done wrong to them or they are wronged in some way, they can take that to a court and they can have their grievances rectified. They can win some justice. The fact is that every single animal in the world, including every wild animal and every one of the billion land animals and trillions of animals in the sea that we kill every year, are things like my shoes or your iPod. They can be bought, they can be sold, they can be traded, they can be killed, they can be eaten. Pretty much anything you want to do to them, you can do. And of course, there's many factors to this problem, like has been discussed by some of the previous speakers. There's no really one way to approach a problem that really is probably as old as civilization itself. And so our attempt is to really, I think of it as kind of hacking the way that we look at the world, because now it's whether or not we are aware of it, we have a very real bias against non-humans. Even people who otherwise, as we know from our own lives, people who profess to love animals, who have their dogs and cats and and other things, they don't get the full picture. They don't see the problem with walking their little dog while eating a bacon cheeseburger. And so it's very much incumbent upon us to I think continue to remind people that as we've discussed here today, there is so much commonality between us and all of the beings that we share the planet with. So we have not yet broken through the wall, as we say. We have gotten close. We've gotten some judges to actually say things along the lines of, I can't do this right now, but I see a future when animals can be considered persons. And it raises a question of, what does this mean? What does this mean for all animals? We're beginning our cases with a rather small set of non-human animals, those being all the great apes, so chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, and orangutans, also dolphins and cetaceans, and elephants as well. But this is not to say that these are the only animals in the world that deserve rights or anything like that. There's a number of reasons I'm happy to talk about. It's kind of a longer discussion about why we are beginning with these species, but we're very much proceeding with the belief that once we establish the precedent that it is possible for a non-human animal to be treated as a legal person and with all of the rights that come along with that, and then when people see that, hey, the planet has not stopped spinning, that things will still progress, we really think that will begin the conversation going into the future of really redesigning how we relate not only to animals but to the rest of the world. And just to cite an example of how these ideas are actually playing out in the real world. In New Zealand, there's a river, I'm going to mess up the name, I think it's the Yawanuaangi River. A few years ago, it was declared by a treaty between the Crown in New Zealand and the Maoris tribe that this river would be treated as a person. So there actually is a river in the world that is a legal person. And what this means in totality, we will have to kind of wait to see. But to me, it's very encouraging that we're beginning to see recognition of the idea that we have to really go deep down and look at how we relate to the world, how we relate to each other, and really bring it in line with our values. Because right now, it's, are you a person? Then you matter. If you're a thing, then you don't matter at all. But I think that everyone here today can agree and believes that that is not the way that this should be. When they look at an animal that they love in their own life, whether it's a dog or a cat or a pig or a chicken or anything, they know that they're not looking at a thing. They know that they're looking at a person, that there's a consciousness there, there's a personality there. And so what we're trying to do is get, one of the slowest moving and yet still very important institutions in our society, the law, to get along with that. And believe it or not, we're actually making progress. There has been a tremendous amount of discussion around the idea of non-human rights since we began filing the lawsuits. And also helping us is, I'll put in a little plug here, there is a documentary film about us and my boss, Stephen Wise, the founder of the Non-Human Rights Project, called Unlocking the Cage, which actually premiered here in New York in June and is going to be premiering on HBO sometime, I believe, in January. So we are, other people have talked about it. We certainly hope that it's something like the next Blackfish, in the sense that it gets not just animal people who we know who get the issues, but the wider public at large to understand that well, we're not going away, and we're going to keep knocking down every door we can to make sure that animals are accorded the respect and dignity that they deserve and are given the freedom and rights that they deserve, not because we decide it's a good thing, but because they've always had that. And so to me, when we're talking about animal rights, we're not talking so much about giving them something, but really recognizing that which they already have and ceasing to violate their rights. So I would encourage everybody to see the film, to follow our work, and also to continue doing what you're doing to shed light on the issues that face animals and to continue to fight to make a better world for them.